I just got back from New York City. I spent a couple days there writing at a writer's workshop. And I lived there for a couple of years, but I still can never quite get used to what New York City is. It's a bizarre place on earth. Here's what some people have said about New York City. Mike Lawrence said, I live in New York. I love this city. It's a great city. But I hate when people say New York City, 8 million people, 8 million stories. There's only 3 stories. There's I moved here, there's I left here, and there's Ghostbusters. Stephen Wright says, I know the guy who writes all those bumper stickers. He hates New York. D.L. Hewley in L.A., rich people live with rich people, poor people live with poor people. In New York, rich people and poor people live building to building. So how do you know the difference, I asked my friend. He said, a good building, you got a doorman. A bad building, you just got a man in the door. Emo Phillips said, New York's such a wonderful city. Although I was at the library today, the librarian was very rude. I said I'd like a library card. He said, you have to prove you're a citizen of New York. So I stabbed him. If you live in New York, even if you're Catholic, you're Jewish. Lenny Bruce. Dave Barry, New York taxi rules. Number 1, driver speaks no English. Number 2, he just got here 2 days ago from someplace like Senegal. And number 3, he hates you. The Barnard Bulletin read, the only real advantage of New York is that all its inhabitants ascend to heaven right after their deaths, having served their full term in hell right on Manhattan Island. George Siegel says there's no room for amateurs in New York, not even in crossing the streets. Johnny Carson, New York is an exciting town where something is happening all the time, most of it unsolved. David Letterman, New York now leads the world's great cities in the number of people around whom you shouldn't make a sudden move. New York is the only city in the world, Letterman says, where you can get deliberately run down on the sidewalk by a pedestrian. Jackie Mason, a person who speaks good English in New York, sounds like a foreigner. David Letterman, traffic signals, this is so true in New York, are just rough guidelines. And Kevin Rooney, New York is like living inside Stephen King's brain during an aneurysm. It is a bizarre place, perhaps one of the most bizarre places on earth. God bless you if you're from New York. But I was just there with 8, 10 million other people, and I have never felt so lonely in my entire life. You could be on a desert island and feel less lonely than you do walking around New York City on any given day. You feel like just a number because in so many ways, that's exactly what you are. And that's what this week's Torah portion is about. It's all about numbers. Sorry to my New York friends who are just appalled right now, but it's true. This week's Torah portion actually is called Bamidbar. In Hebrew, is in the desert, but we call it the book of Numbers. Why? Because it opens up with a litany of numbers, all kinds of numbers, as Moses is instructed to take census after census in the desert. There are so many head counts in this week's Torah portion. The Lord spoke to Moses in the Sinai desert in the 10th of the meeting on the first day, the second month, the second year after the Exodus from the land of Egypt, saying, take the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel by families following their father's house, a head count of every male, that's right, according to the number of their names. Should have counted the females. So what does he do? Moses counts. He counts each tribe. From the tribe of Reuben were 46,500. The tribe of Shimon, 59,300. Tribe of Gad, 45,650. The sum of all of them, he keeps going on, was 603,550. He counts the encampments, he counts the divisions, he counts this and that and the other. And the truth of the matter is, head counts are important. Right? Judaism is not a religion that believes God and spirituality is something that just happens up there. We believe that God and spirituality is also part and parcel of what we do down here. And part of what it means to be a Jew, part of what it means to be a human being is to be a social being, to be in community. And back in the day, in the desert, they had to take a head count to know who they had to serve them in their military, to know whom they had to serve with social services, all kinds of responsibilities of guiding these people through the desert then and now. There were the taxes, the capital campaigns for a temple. I know it's hard to imagine, but it's as ancient as our people. It's as ancient as our people have been around. And so this is part and parcel of what it means to be a Jew. But it's also a very slippery slope. The Jewish people have always been uncomfortable with head counts because, yes, the tzibur, the community, the congregation, the people is important, but so is the yachid, the individual within community, and in many ways more important than the community itself. After all, our people went down to Egypt as individuals. Remember, 2 books of the Torah previous to this one was the book of Exodus. But in Hebrew, it's called Shemot. It's called the book of names. Why? Because our ancestors went down to Israel as individuals. Each of the brothers of the sons of Jacob went down with their name intact and their identity intact. And they went and they met their brother Joseph down there, who was second in command. And then over time, Joseph was forgotten. And then over time, these individuals lost their individuality. And they became this nameless, faceless mass of people. And in time, Pharaoh enslaved these people as they lost their individuality and their identity and their names. And so our people ended up in slavery, in many ways just becoming numbers, lost their yachid, their sense of individuality. Now they were just one big tzibur, one just congregation community, but now enslaved. And we have seen this throughout history, Jewish history in particular, people being stripped of their individuality, of their identity, of their names, defaced and replacing those names with all kinds of horrible names that our people have been called, kikes and Christ killers and vermin and monsters. Why? Because if you can reduce somebody to a name, an abstract identity, if you take away their name, you can then enslave them. You can even murder them. You can't murder so easily Joseph Cohen, who was a tailor in Vilna or Warsaw, but you can murder number 47,235. You can murder a number much easier than you can murder a name. And that's what's happened to our people throughout history. We have been reduced to numbers, all kinds of numbers. In fact, we were reduced so much to numbers in the Holocaust that each individual Jew was estimated on how much his body or her body could produce. Of all of the things that they produced, they turned Jews into. Horrible. I don't want to get into the graphic details because we have children here, but we were reduced to the most disgusting level of being a number, right? That's humanity at its lowest point. But this isn't just Judaism. This isn't just happened to Jews. It's happened to all kinds of people all throughout time. It's happening right now. In Syria, how many people have died or are dying as we speak? I've lost count. 60,000, 70,000, 80,000? That's part of the problem, though, isn't it? It's just a number. It's hard to connect to a number. It's hard to feel for a number. It's hard to fight for a number or care about a number. And that's also part of the problem, is we round these numbers up or down. It's not 60,000 or 80,000. I don't know what the number is, but it's probably something like 60,237 or 70,136. Right? They're never round numbers, but that's what we humans do. We round people up. We round people down. We round off. We have rounding errors. There weren't 6 million Jews killed. I don't know the exact number. I've tried to find it. Nobody knows it. But that's part of the problem. And when we say that 6 million died, we are playing into this idea of numbers and the disturbing side of numbers. It was 6,232,425, or it was 5,900,236, whatever it was. Those individual numbers are not insignificant. They were significant. That rounding error was somebody's husband or somebody's wife or somebody's parent or somebody's child. These were not just numbers. These were individuals. These were souls. Yes, we need community, and we need to take head counts in community to make communities work, but we have to remind ourselves of the slippery slope of what happens when we start to simply count people like sheep, to start counting heads. And that's why this week's Torah portion ends differently than it began. Moses does something at the very end that he doesn't do at the beginning. He's rounding and he's all these big numbers and there's loss of individuality. And then it says, God said to Moses, count every firstborn male child, aged 1 month and upward. So Moses counted every firstborn of Israel. And according to the number of their names was 22,273. Moses stops rounding. He stops ending with neat, tidy packages with numbers ending in 0, and he counts every single baby born. 22,273, not 22,274, and not 22,272. He was very specific because each baby counted, and each child counts, and each individual counts. The rabbinic tradition says every human being is an olam katan, is a world unto themselves, and when you murder a person, you are murdering an entire world, all of the worlds that would have, that should have come through them, but now will not. So this is the mission of Judaism in a nutshell, right? To reclaim a sense of yachid b'tzibor, of individuality within community, to reclaim a sense of a personalized world and a world that is becoming all too quickly depersonalized. There are so many ways we can do this, from the mundane to the sublime. I'll just offer a handful of things that came to me off the top of my head. I'm sure you can add more to the conversation. How do we personalize a depersonalized world? Maybe when we go to Uno's Pizzeria and we have a waiter or waitress waiting on us, we actually use their name tag. We say their name. If they don't have a name tag on, maybe we ask them their name, because they weren't put into this world to wait on us, to serve on us, though that's what they do as a job for that moment in time. But there's something much more profound than a waiter or a waitress. They're a person with a story, with a name. Maybe the next time we're sitting on an airplane, we actually introduce ourselves to the person that's going to be snoring on our shoulder. I guarantee you, firsthand experience, it changes the nature of knowing that this is Mrs. Schwartz snoring on my shoulder. This isn't just some number. This isn't just some name. She's still snoring on your shoulder, but at least you know her, and it feels, a little bit good, a nice connection. This is how we'll reclaim a personalized world, and a world that's becoming depersonalized very quickly. Here's another random thing that happened to me. I have, as you probably know, a website, and these websites are hosted by Network Solutions, or they were. Network Solutions, like one of the biggest companies out there. I had to call them 10 times to get something resolved. Not once did they ask me for the name. Every single time they asked me for my number. At some point, I just realized I was a number to them. Why am I giving them my business? So what did I do? I found a local guy, Kevin Ritterhouse, who runs North Shore Web Design. He's by day a principal in a Lynn school, and by night he runs my website and other people's website. He does a tremendous job. And I feel good about giving him that business. I feel good because he knows my name. Can't say my name, but he knows my name, right? And here's another example of how we can do it. As a community, that was individually. As a community, there are so many ways we can reclaim a personalized world, and in a world that's growing depersonalized too quickly. Radical hospitality. I am so proud of this aspect of Shirat Hayam. When somebody comes here for the first time, who was once a stranger, by the end is no longer a stranger. They tell me it's remarkable. They have been asked their name or their story, or they've been invited to sit with somebody at lunch 5, 6, 7 times. You can go to some synagogues and not be spoken to, not even once, the entire day. We've all had that experience. That is a crying shame. That's how we can reclaim a personalized world. That's how we can bring the divine back into the conversation and make people feel like they are individuals and their individuality matters. And last but not least, as a community, I think one thing we must do, we will be doing, is get rid of this way of counting our membership as family units. It is so cold to say we have 600 family units. I think it's cold to say we have 600 families. We're not 600 families. We're 2,332 souls. We don't need head counts. We don't need house counts. We need soul counts. We need to recognize every individual for who they are and what they bring, not only to this congregation or this community, but to the world. And at the most sublime level, here are just remarkable examples of bringing holiness, of bringing the personal, of bringing the individuality back to a world that sometimes has lost its humanity. Here's 3 final ways, and then we'll end and we'll celebrate. One is marriage. It is the season of marriage. I am doing weddings often on Sundays now. And I say to the couple, the young couple standing under the chuppah, some version of this every single time. I say to them, what you are saying are not just these vows. What you are saying is that I choose you, ideally, to the exclusion of every single other person out in the world. Because to me, ani ledodi v'dodi li, you are special, you are unique, you are the only one, and you are mine. It is one of the most beautiful moments when they look into each other's eyes and they recognize that and they say that. Shmuley Boteach, Rabbi Boteach, has this great story to bring it home. He was on a plane ride with a pop star. I think it was Michael Jackson or somebody. The plane arrives at the gate, and there's 1,000 people waiting. And Boteach goes one way, Rabbi Boteach goes one way, and Michael Jackson goes the other way. And 999 people go after Michael Jackson to get his autograph, to fawn over him, to just be near him, except one. There was one person left waiting at the gate who didn't care about Michael Jackson because her rock star was Shmuley. It was her husband. It was his wife, right? And she was there waiting for him at the gate. And he said in that moment, he realized that to her, he was the most important world. And he was no longer B'tzibor, the congregation, the kahal, the community. He was the individual, the only individual that mattered in her life. Here's another beautiful way that we can bring back a sense of individuality, give children an opportunity they might not have had otherwise. I've asked permission to share this. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I am so touched by what Ariel and Adam Wallen, two of our congregants here, have done. They have signed up to become foster parents, right? I can think of no more remarkable way to give somebody a sense of individuality, to give a child who probably does feel like a number in the system, to give a child who probably is being lost in a maze of bureaucracy. At best, at worst, they go home to a place of dysfunction, maybe abuse. And Ariel and Adam are going to foster within these children a sense of individuality. They're going to foster within them a sense of divinity. They're going to foster within them that sense of yachid, that they are a soul, that they are precious, that they are loved, that they are not just a number. And if they are a number, it is that they are number one. Kol hakavod to Ariel and Adam. This is how we will reclaim a sense of yachid b'tzibor. This is how we will reclaim holiness of the personal in an all too impersonal world. And last but not least, the celebration that we just had and we're going to continue to have. The Nettie's adoption of little baby Ava. David and Robin, Jacob and Aaron have gone out into the world and they have found this beautiful child and they have committed to giving this child a better life than she probably would have had otherwise. And they've committed to this child to make her realize she is not just a number. And they have given her a name, a beautiful name. But not just a name and identity, not just an identity, a sense of individuality, and not just a sense of individuality, but those words, ani ledodi v'dodi li. I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. What they are saying to this child is, we are your family. And we love you, and you are our family, and you are loved. We choose you. We love you. You are no longer a nameless face among the crowd. You are our face. You are literally our name. You are now our flesh and blood, and our soul, and our yachid, our individual. You are ours. Welcome home. This is how we will reclaim yachid b'tzibor, holiness of the personal, in an all too depersonalized world. Let me end with this, a final story that I think brings it home. A young man was walking along the seashore. Behind another man, there's another older man farther down the beach. And he saw this older man reaching over and picking something up and throwing it in the water. As he got closer and closer, he saw what the man was doing. The man was reaching down and picking up starfish and throwing them back in the water. And there were starfish after starfish that had been washed up on the beach. This young man almost felt a sense of indignation. And he approached the man. He said, "What are you doing this for? Right? This is worthless. You can't save all of these starfish. It's useless. What does it matter?" The old man paused for a moment, looked down at the crusty starfish he just picked up. He turned it over slowly and said, "It matters to this one." And with slow, deliberate motion, he tossed it back into the sea, into life, and he just kept going down the beach, starfish after starfish, for as long as he could, as much as he could. That's how we will reclaim the sense of individuality in this world. That's how we will claim a sense of holiness. We can't all do it all. We're not asked to do it all. All that each and every one of us are asked to do is to do our part. We can't save the world, but we can save a world. We can save one world at a time. It matters to this one. That should be our mantra. That is our mantra at Shirat Hayom. You matter to us. Welcome home.